Hey guys, Brad here. Before we start the show, I want to encourage you all to subscribe to the Millennial Mastermind podcast on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. It's a great way to make sure that you never miss one of our most recent interviews. And while you're there, please leave a rating or review. It really helps others to find the show. Thanks.
Their circumstances changed, their strategy changed, and the stuff that I was helping them with was really no longer needed. And so they basically, had to make the hard decision of, we really don't, need you anymore. At the time, it was terrifying, but it was honestly the best thing that ever could have happened to me. It was really like getting kind of pushed out of the nest, and I had no other option but to succeed and to make it work. And so I think it's really interesting. A lot of people kind of don't realize what they're capable of until they're pushed into a corner.
In Napoleon Hill's timeless classic, Think and Grow Rich, he defines a mastermind group as the coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. In this podcast, that coordination is created between you, me, and our amazing guests. Our definite purpose is achieving extraordinary results in your business and your life. I'm your host, Brad Mulvey. Welcome to the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. This is a very exciting episode for me because I'm actually having the opportunity to interview a very good friend, somebody I've known since my college days, and that is Dorothy Illson. Dorothy, how you doing today? Welcome to the show.
Good, Brad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I will give a brief overview on you real quick, and then I'll let you fill in some of the gaps. So when we were hanging out back in our good old days at Miami University, which anybody watching the video recording can see, I purposely wore my Miami shirt. But you were on a very different track. You were with PwC at the time, and you were on the track to go down the Big Four accounting routes. And then shortly after school, I found out things had changed for you, where you actually joined a startup. And what I didn't realize at the time, but now know, is that you were the third employee at that startup, which was in the meal subscription space. And for 3.5 years, you were part of the team that helped grow that company from zero to $6 million in revenue. And then after that, you made another shift and you jumped into the entrepreneurial world as a full-time entrepreneur yourself, specifically in the Facebook advertising space. So as the founder of Needle's Eye Media, after 5 months, you broke 5 figures a month. And then in the first year, you more than tripled your income from where you were at previous to that, which is just incredible, super inspiring. And we've talked a lot about it since then, but I'm excited to share some of your story with our listeners and learn more that I don't even know about that journey for you. So with that intro, is there anything that you would like to fill in that I missed out on there?
Sure. Thanks, Brad. I was pretty laser focused throughout college of, wanting to, get what I thought to be the ultimate achievement. So, a job at a Big Four accounting firm. And so did my internship at PwC, accepted a full-time job in their Chicago office, going into my senior year. And then over the course of my senior year, sort of just had this ever increasing sense of dread. It was pretty easy to picture what my life would look like, in the accounting world. And, the more I thought about it, the less I liked the way that looked. The thought of, having this, very corporate life, being in an office, working insane hours. And, it just didn't really feel like something that got me excited. And so I ended up, 2 weeks after graduation, calling up PwC and telling them I wasn't coming. So that was really a huge leap of faith. I really didn't know what my next move was going to be, but I just had confidence that I would land on my feet and I would figure it out. So I moved to Chicago anyway and ended up finding a job at that startup that you mentioned.
That's awesome. And kudos to you for having the guts to actually do that. I know a lot of people may have a feeling in their gut before that they don't want to go down the path that's in front of them, but they just do it because that's the easy thing to do at that point. But you actually had the courage to call them, quit your job before you even started, and go down a very different road. So then fast forward 3.5 years, you had an incredible experience working with that startup, but then some other things had to have changed that you decided, you know what, it's time for me to branch out and do it on my own. What was that change like, and what kind of inspired you to do your own thing at that stage in the game?
Sure. So what happened in essence, I loved my job. I loved the startup environment, very fast paced, wearing a ton of different hats, able to do a lot of things and learn a ton. I was also very fortunate in that I was able to work remote with that company. So, we did have an office, but I was able to work from home when I wanted to. I had a ton of autonomy, a ton of flexibility. And so things really changed in the fall of 2016 when one of the co-founders of that business announced that he was leaving. And, he had been my boss for the entire time I was there. I had so much respect for him, and really he was the reason that I had stayed there, for so long, because I felt really grateful to have the opportunity to learn from him and be mentored by him. So when he announced he was leaving, I knew that I wanted to leave too. I started talking to other startups, knew I didn't want to go somewhere very corporate. And frankly, I'd been a little bit spoiled having my first job out of college be something that had that much flexibility, that had the remote aspect. And so as I was looking at my options, I realized I really don't want to be somewhere that's going to force me to be, tied to an office 5 days a week, even tied to Chicago. I really wanted to maintain my freedom, for lack of a better word. And so it was interesting because when I got the idea in my head, what if I tried doing something on my own? I'd always been entrepreneurial. I always knew that was the ultimate goal, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. And when I started telling people, I'm thinking about this, they all thought, well, it's so risky. Do you really want to take that kind of a risk? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it actually didn't feel like that big of a risk. And what I mean by that is, I was pretty confident that I would be able to get a job if I needed to get one. And so I kind of had this mindset of, why don't I just try? See if I can do it. And, if worst comes to worst, I, run out of money, I can, go get a job. And so I decided to give it a shot. And from there, I haven't looked back.
So what inspired going into the Facebook ad space? Is that something that you had grown that skill working at the previous organization? Or is that something that you had self-taught? How did that look like on picking what that business was going to be?
Yep. So I was not directly involved in the Facebook advertising for that startup, but I was on the marketing team. So my entire role there was around marketing. And so when I first started off on my own, I did some freelancing work in kind of random things that I had skills in Infusionsoft consulting, things like that. And then I ended up having the opportunity to study Facebook ads under a man named Jason Hornung. So Jason has a Facebook advertising course that I had been through. And really through some lucky circumstances, I had the opportunity to go to a workshop of his that was a small workshop, about 10 people, which was 3 days intensive of training with him. And it was when I was at that workshop that I realized, I think that I have some talent in this, it's something that I'm interested in, and it's something that there's a lot of demand for, frankly. And so I really saw Facebook advertising as being, really a path forward where, I believed that I would be able to create an income and support myself and also really help people and help businesses to grow in the same way that I was able to watch the company that I had worked for previously to grow.
Well, I think that's an important intersection that you mention, is that you had begun to develop that skill, but you also recognized that there was a lot of demand for it, because those are definitely two pieces necessary to create any kind of business. So the fact that you were able to identify that pretty early on and go headfirst into it, I think leads to a lot of the success that you've experienced. Is that kind of how you see it as well?
Absolutely. It's definitely simpler to, grow a business if the market is agreeing with you, So, what you see these days with Facebook ads specifically is that there's so much demand for it that there's also a bit of a bubble of service providers, of people who are, jumping into it and, trying to get results for clients and build an agency. And so what I recognized was that if I wanted to set myself apart from, the rest of the people that were doing this, I just had to be better, and so I really invested in my skills, invested in my learning, actually invested in Jason as a mentor so that I would have that support with my clients early on. And, really did everything that I could to set myself apart and make sure that, I would be able to deliver the results that I was promising. And then, all it really takes is getting that first client. And once you have one, you deliver those results, then you have a case study, then your confidence goes up and you're able to get that second client and that third client, and it begins to snowball from there.
Right. So let's talk about that first client. What was that process like of finding the first client, getting somebody who's actually going to pay you to do this work for them? How did you find them? What was your mental thought process going into that, trying to figure out, what you're going to charge, how that whole structure looks like? Can you just kind of walk me through that stage of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first client came from a referral. So I was fortunate, I had done some freelancing earlier in the year for a woman who had an agency, and she ended up shutting down her business. And one of her previous clients who I had worked with, we had a great relationship when I was working for her through that agency. And so when that other agency closed its doors, she asked me if we could continue to work together. And so that was how I got my first client. And it was definitely tough to figure out, okay, how do I price this? How do I put processes and systems around my business? How do I really make this legitimate? And so, the real answer is that you just need to go with what feels right and figure it out along the way. And so, because I had invested so heavily in my learning and in mentorship, I was able to charge a premium over what a lot of other, people in the space were charging. And I think that was great for, a couple of reasons. First of all, it sets you apart. There's this thinking that goes on with people when they're first starting out on their own of, I need to charge as little as possible so that I can get clients. But the reality is that you're just going to end up attracting the wrong people. People don't want to just pay the lowest price. They want to get the best results. And you actually end up scaring good clients away if your prices are too low. And so that was something that, I really had to get over that mental block and really charge, what my services were worth.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's so true. No matter what space you're in, I've seen it, for myself within kind of the mastermind group space of before I ever got into any of this, before I had a podcast or had mastermind groups of my own, I remember joining one that was free. And just the quality of individuals that are attracted to something that's free is going to be very different than something that's paid or paid at a premium level, and the people participating in that. So I think across the board, that makes a lot of sense. So were there any other very big challenges that you faced in the past year that you've been going through this process that, almost made you close the doors, go back, find another job at a different startup? That you had to overcome that ended up turning into a great learning experience?
Yeah. So there's one story in particular that I think might be valuable to your listeners. And it's basically around the fear that I had of really being on my own and having that total, uncertainty of no paycheck to rely on. And so, when I was freelancing, hadn't really figured out what I was going to do. I had one client, but, that was really it. I was approached by my old boss at that startup that I'd worked for so long. And he said, I partnered up with, this guy. We're starting an e-commerce business. We could use your help. Would you like to be involved? And so I just leapt at the opportunity to work with him again. I kind of thought, gosh, how lucky am I? I can still have clients. I can, be an entrepreneur, but, at the same time, I can still, work with, my old boss, my mentor, who, I really trusted. I thought that I would be successful, but I knew that he would be successful, or at least,
Right.
In my head, that's how I was thinking about it. And so I jumped at that opportunity. So I started working with them. And then about a month in, their circumstances changed, their strategy changed, and the stuff that I was helping them with was really no longer needed. And so they basically, had to make the hard decision of, we really don't, need you anymore. And so that was jarring because, I had really, in hindsight, I had been holding on to him like a security blanket. I really thought that I could have the best of both worlds and kind of have the security at the same time as I had my freedom. And what I realized was that really isn't possible. And so at the time, it was terrifying because I recognized, okay, now I am really, truly on my own. But it was honestly the best thing that ever could have happened to me. It was really like getting kind of pushed out of the nest, and I had no other option but to succeed and to make it work. And so I think it's really interesting. A lot of people kind of don't realize what they're capable of until they're pushed into a corner. I had bills to pay. I had to figure out a way to make money and to figure out a way to make it work. And so when you are kind of without other options, you will find a way forward. And so that was really the moment that I truly started my agency. Found some other clients and have continued to grow from there. And looking back, I'm just couldn't be more happy that it worked out the way that it did.
Right. Yeah. And it seems that that's commonly the case of after something that in the moment seems like a monumental challenge and a really tough situation ends up being the thing that helps us succeed and helps us get to where we want to go. So what were maybe the first month after that, like once you get out, you get past the fact that, okay, this opportunity is gone. It's just me. I'm on my own. What do you do? What tangible things did you do to make your agency a reality and go find more clients and make that happen?
Mm-hmm. So I really tapped my network. And so, I reached out to everyone that I knew and told them, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking for clients. Do you know anyone that you could refer me to? And that was how I got my first couple clients early on. And then I've been very fortunate in that, from there, I've been able to get great results from my clients. And so, when you get good results for someone, they spread the word. And so that was really how I got my clients in the beginning. And since then, I've also used various tools online. For example, I've had clients come through Upwork, platforms like that. But really, it's been word of mouth. And so that's something I'm proud of because it speaks to being able to actually deliver the results that I'm promising for my clients. And so I think that is something that's so important is, get loud about what you're doing, tell people, ask people for referrals, and really tap all available resources that you have.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of that, even before getting loud about what you're doing, is building that network before you need it. So that once you do end up needing something from your network, or you want to go into your own network to find clients or to find people who may be able to refer you to clients, you already have put in the groundwork. You already know the people who might be in the right places, and don't do it with the expectation of getting something out of those relationships down the road, But just know that if you build that groundwork, that foundational network early on, or right now, wherever you are at the stage right now, whoever's listening to this, that when you do need something from your network, or you want to share something awesome that you're doing, they're there and ready to listen. And the other piece that you mentioned there, and I had a similar experience with launching the podcast, was getting loud about what you're doing. And that can be a really awkward thing for people who haven't had to share what they're doing before. Was that challenging for you to kind of reach out and just start telling people about what you were doing and let them know, hey, I'm looking for clients. Hey, if you know anybody, or if you yourself are looking for somebody, hit me up. How did that feel for you?
It was scary for sure, but I think that kind of leads into the other thing that I think was really monumental in my ability to get my business off the ground, and that was my mindset. So I think something that is so important for especially young people who are going off on their own is to make sure that you're working as hard on your mindset as you are on your business. And so there were so many moments that I could look back on and, think I could have quit. I could have thought this isn't working. I should just give up and go get a job. And it was really the dedication to, working on my mindset and the way that I was thinking that allowed me to push through those moments and not stay in that place of fear. And so for me, that meant meditation. It meant journaling. Those two things really were the foundation that allowed me to keep pushing forward when it was tough and to see the results that weren't there yet. It is fascinating the way that when you get crystal clear on the type of person you want to attract, the type of client that you want to work with, the sort of person who you believe that you can help, the way that those people will start to show up for you. So I think working on your mindset and making sure that you are starting at the source to really get deliberate about your patterns of thinking, that is so critical to your success.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so the two you mentioned there were meditation and journaling. Are there any specific practices that you have in those two areas, or that you have had over the past year or 2 years or whatever it may be, that have helped you get to that right mindset that has helped you succeed?
Absolutely. So meditation is one of those things that I kind of did halfway for a long time. So I would do it sometimes, but I wasn't consistent about it. And I knew that it was powerful, that it was something that could really help me, but it is so true that I really did not start to see the benefits of it until I truly committed to making it a daily practice. And so now when I wake up in the morning, my morning routine looks pretty similar every single day. Even on the weekends, I wake up, I do a minimum of 10 minutes of meditation, and then I do journaling practice. So that can last anywhere from 10 minutes on days that are busy to sometimes I'll spend an hour journaling. And I would never in a million years actually show my journal to someone because I'd probably seem like a crazy person. But I really use my journal as a way to pump myself up, get my confidence up, and to, figure out how to visualize the things that I'm trying to achieve and the results that I'm trying to create. And doing that with consistency is, really what I would credit a large portion of the success that I found to.
So would you mind, when you're doing that journaling, what do you journal about? Do you use journal prompts? Is there a specific resource that you would recommend that people use to get started with that type of practice? Where's a good starting point?
Absolutely. So I used a couple different resources when I first got started, and eventually found prompts that really worked well for me and made me feel really good. Because really the goal of journaling is that, when you finish your journaling for the day, you should feel on top of the world, like you could go conquer anything. And so it's about finding, prompts and questions to ask yourself and to journal about that are really going to get you that excited. And one thing that I'll share with your listeners is that I'm actually putting together a 30-day journaling challenge for the new year that includes those daily prompts to, help you get yourself fired up and to get yourself really clear on the results that you're trying to achieve and how to go about manifesting those results in your life.
Nice. And where can people find that?
Yes. So if they go to my website, that's needleseyemedia.com/mindset, there you can sign up for the list to be notified when that is coming out. So it'll be early in January that we'll be getting started, and it'll be 30 days of journaling prompts to help you do everything I just described.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to have that linked up in the show notes. So another thing that I wanted to kind of dig in about was, so you've gone through the past year, so many different learning experiences. Obviously, it's all been a lot of new things, but if you could take one piece of advice and go back in time and connect with Dorothy from the day she's leaving that startup company and is going out on her own, and she's about to blaze the trail ahead of her, but she doesn't know what she's learned, what you've learned over the past year. Is there one piece of advice that you'd give to yourself at that stage?
Yeah. Can I give you a couple?
Yeah, absolutely. This is
Sure.
open-ended.
Awesome. So there are a few things I would say. First, self-educate. You would be amazed at the tools that are out there that to allow you to up-level your skills. So for example, I mentioned, I took an online course in Facebook advertising. That's something that literally anyone could go sign up for and go through. So don't discount self-education. It is so highly important in giving you the skills that you need to be able to market yourself. The second thing is invest in mentors. So you really do need to surround yourself with people who have accomplished the things that you are looking to accomplish. And it is the fastest way to really increase your chance of success. So invest in mentorship. And then the third thing, I actually go back to, there's this poem that is a Wendell Berry poem that my father used to actually quote to me growing up. And the thing that always stuck out that he would say to me is, "The wild things do not tax themselves with forethought of grief." And what that means in essence is that, when you worry and you allow yourself to be consumed with fear about what might happen in the future, you're paying interest on a debt that you might not owe. Fear exists only in your mind. And so there are really two things that I recommend every new entrepreneur does. The first is take so much action that you don't have time to be afraid about what might happen if it doesn't work out. And the second piece is, become so blindly optimistic that you're convinced of the inevitability of your own success before the results are there to back it up. Then, every time you stumble or you fail, you can recognize that you're really simply one step closer to your next breakthrough. So if you don't do those things, fear is something that can really cripple you and cause you to quit, right before you're about to reach that goal.
I love that piece about the take so much action that you don't have time to be afraid, because it's so true. If you are literally doing so much that you're just focused on the task at hand and right in front of you, those other things seem to just dissipate from your mind. You don't have the opportunity to sit there and think about them too much and overthink what the downside might be. So if you're not a person who has, developed that mental fortitude that Dorothy, you've done so well of being able to just kind of combat the fear, taking action is a great way and a little hack to be able to do that right now.
Yeah. And if you want help in doing that, find other people who are doing the same kind of things that you're interested in doing, or even who have, similar ambitions. So for example, Brad, I'm in your mastermind group. And so, we get on the phone once a week. We're all doing vastly different things in our careers, actually, but, we're all, ambitious people who are reaching for, that next, big phase of our lives. And so, surrounding yourself with people who have a similar mindset is really, really something that, can't be, overstated how valuable that is. So surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up and push you forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think a perfect example of that is this past week, you were in town along with 20 other really amazing and inspiring millennials, and we had the Launchpad Mastermind event, and just seeing people come together who have a similar mindset and are looking to improve their situation and themselves naturally bleeds into everybody else sitting at the table there. And walking out of that event, it was incredible just to see how fired up everybody else was because of the people around them. And it's one of those things, I mean, it's like inspiration that and motivation. It strikes and you get involved with it, and it's something that you do. And right after that, you feel great about it, and it's very helpful. But it could fade away. So constantly having either those relationships or something that's like an actual system, like a mastermind group in your life that you can continuously have people around you that push you like that is so beneficial, because it forces you to kind of change your mindset around those things and helps take your situation to the next level. So I love that you mentioned that. Are there any specific tools, Dorothy, that you would like to share that you've found especially impactful over the past year as you've been beginning this journey of entrepreneurship?
Sure. So the biggest one by far has been the mastermind group. So being a part of the Millennial Mastermind, has really helped me to stay focused and to stay accountable to the things that I say that I'm going to do. When you're working alone, you really need to find people who will hold you accountable. And so that has been huge. Podcasts, I listen to a ton of podcasts, and that really just keeps me in a good headspace, keeps me focused, and keeps me inspired. So, of course, your podcast. I also love Gary Vaynerchuk's EO Fire, Build Your Network with Travis Chappell. That's another one I really enjoy. And then the mindset stuff really can't be overstated. So I use Insight Timer, which is an app for meditation. I've used Headspace as well in the past. But Insight Timer is the one that has really worked well for me. And then lastly, journaling. So like I said, I'll be introducing that 30-day journaling course. So you can head over to needleseyemedia.com/mindset if you want to be a part of that.
Awesome. And I appreciate the mastermind group shout out. I didn't know you were going to do that. So thank you very much. And so besides needleseyemedia.com, is there anywhere else on the interwebs that anybody who's listening to this can find out more about you or reach out to you if they're really just loving everything that they're hearing and maybe they want to be a client, or maybe they just want to reach out to start a conversation?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook. If you search for Needles Eye Media, you'll find my Facebook page where I actually do Facebook Lives, getting really tactical about things that are working in my agency for my clients. And so if you do Facebook advertising, or if you have an interest in learning more, that's a great place to go.
Well, Dorothy, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on today and sharing everything you have. It's been so cool for me to have to be a witness to see all the cool things that you've done over the past year, and just to see the amazing steps forward that you've taken. It's like every single month you're bringing new and exciting ideas to the table that are just total game changers. And it's very inspiring for me to be surrounded by you and have you as one of those people in my life who pushes the needle forward for me. So thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it.